My next question, I guess, will lead into Donald Trump, because if let's say that Trump gets elected, President Trump, he's leading in all the polls right now in the primary. Nobody's ever lost with the kind of lead he's had, right? We'll talk about a few things maybe that are potentials for him. If he gets back in and disbands the FBI, do you think the left is going to view that as a correction or as an authoritarian move? Meaning the kind of disbanding that we've talked about, like, okay, we have to really dig down in and get the rot out of the FBI. Do you think they're going to see that as a correction or as, see, we told you he's going to be authoritarian, he's never going to leave office again?
The left will absolutely see it that way. They will see it as Trump is now wreaking vengeance on the people who tried to get him. And to some degree, I think that perception is going to be unavoidable. Mm-hmm. I'm actually not so worried about that right now. I'm more worried about the Republican psychology, that the right of center psychology that doesn't recognize the sort of peril that we are in as a country with regard to our basic rights. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the FBI, for example, I would say that 1/2 of Republican members of Congress are going to be immediately frozen when you bring up the topic, because they're like, wait a minute, we thought we were back the blue. How can we be back the blue and at the same time against the FBI?
Right.
This is going to be too confusing a message for my constituents, Dinesh. And I'm like, wait a minute. Police states are inherently lawless. What the FBI is doing is abusing its credibility and its prosecutorial discretion and its the intelligence function it was set up to do. It's abusing all of that. So there's nothing inconsistent with being back the blue and supporting law and order, and then opposing the abuse of law and order.
Exactly.
So, but Republicans in this sense are very reluctant to modify traditional positions that really go back to the Reagan era, but I think are obsolete today. So the difference is, I don't know if you've seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, but in the beginning you got Jimmy Stewart, and he's a goofball guy, he's a law and order guy, and he's like, I'm not going to be like these criminals, you know, I rely on my books, and I'll call the authorities if I need to. Now, if you're living in a peaceful town with a good sheriff and a good system, you can be that way. Focus on your books. But if you go out in a covered wagon out west, and you're surrounded by outlaws with guns, and they want to burn your homestead and rape your wife and kill your kids, and you're like, I'm not going to go for my rifle because I'm better than they are. I'm a man of principle. You know,
you'll be a dead man of principle.
You would be, and nobody would even know what to say to you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what my film is intended to say is, listen, we are not in normal politics in America. We are seeing in a very short time rights that we took for granted really since the founding being seriously imperiled. And the forces that are doing this, I mean, they're in academia, they're in the media, they're in the nonprofit sector, they are the digital platforms, they're in government. I mean, you're dealing with a very formidable combination of forces. So this is not even something that is fixed by an election. It's going to take an election, but a lot more.